Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adut, for that snappy introduction. And so, as we get started with the webinar, like I mentioned earlier, I will be throwing to you a couple of questions, and then later on, we'll ask some of the questions that were sent by the participants during registration. So, I would start by asking you about your observation or your thoughts about the practice of breastfeeding in the environment in which you work, in the women you work with, through your organization, and even your personal observation, probably in the neighborhoods or as you go about your normal life. How is the culture of breastfeeding like among mothers? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Currently, in our environment, breastfeeding actually has a significant contribution to reducing disparities in the health outcomes among infants and mothers by providing a range of health, economic, and social benefits. However, it's not all good, as I can say, and that's why we have to really put this across to everyone in South Sudan, because at some point we have a lot that is going on, and it's not really comforting to the mothers, because as we all know that breastfeeding is very good for every child. It provides optimal nutrition and immunity for infants, right from the complete nutrition, from immunity, protection from immunity and all that. We have also the long-term health benefits of it, which it lowers some chronic diseases in the women. It also has the oxytocin part of the aspect of it, that it also contributes to the well-being of the woman, that reduces stress. I think they call them love hormones. But when we come to South Sudan as a country, we actually have to accept that we have some challenges. These challenges are related to the environment that we stay in, as well as also the community around us. So right now, looking at the environment we are in and seeing what's happening, there are a lot of things that need to be addressed. For instance, much as we all need to put across that we need breastfeeding, is the environment conducive for all mothers to breastfeed? That's one. The second one also is the community also giving you a good response. At the workplace, are you comfortable to breastfeed your child? Do you have that fear? Do the workplaces provide places whereby working mothers can breastfeed their children? Does it have they put it across as one of the things that can be beneficial to the motherhood? And also at home, how are women who have just given birth and breastfeeding, are they put to stress, or are they comfortable while breastfeeding their children? So it's a whole general view of how we view breastfeeding, and also the impact it does. Because I believe that a happy mother is a happy child, and if our women are not happy per se, I don't think there is really going on. There's really much that is going to happen. Another thing also, we have a lot of economic crisis, in that, in a way that from the time a woman is conceiving, during the time of conception, she's supposed to be going to antenatal care. But because of the high rise in the prices right now, I don't know how much it is, but I believe that it has also heightened because of the economic challenge. But you're supposed to attend antenatal care until you give birth. So you can imagine a child. Some kids are even born premature, not because of failure to go for antenatal, but other reasons best known to the parents. But at the same time, also failure to do that, it also has a negative impact on the child's well-being, because there are some drugs that are supposed to be administered during that time. So all these failures to eat right, to breastfeed, to eat right, to go for antenatal checkup, and also for the baby to be checked well. And by the time you give birth, we're supposed to be replaced during the breastfeeding session. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. So when a mother is not breastfeeding well, because even we understand that the economic crisis are so high and prices in the market, those days a breastfeeding or a woman who was just lactating mother would have a special meal. But because of the crisis now, not everyone can afford that. So we have a lot ongoing in the country, and then also we cannot put it at equilibrium that everyone is okay and everyone is doing well. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you so much, and for highlighting what you've seen when it comes to breastfeeding culture in this country, in the environment in which you work, as well as some of the challenges that are posed by this. We are facing a challenge with with the with the second panelist joining, unfortunately. So that means we will have to continue with you in the meantime until he joins us. So let's talk about access, equitable access. What are some of the strategies that you would recommend to ensure equitable access to breastfeeding support and resources, especially in the different communities in South Sudan that you've worked with? What are some creative and probably innovative strategies to ensure that there's access to breastfeeding for a lot of these communities?
Thank you so much for the question. The first and foremost, ensuring equitable access to breastfeeding is paramount. They need support and resources in different communities. And this related approach that address barriers and promotes inclusivity. One of the strategies that I see is very, very vital is the community-based support, peer support programs, local support groups. And this also, when we have such kind of support groups in our community, it shows awareness on how serious people are when it comes to breastfeeding campaigns, and also it establishes a bond of trust between the mother and then also the community that they come from. We also have the health care integration, whereby we have to train for the healthcare providers and then the lactation consultants. When we train these healthcare practitioners, I don't know if we have any healthcare practitioner in the webinar with us here, but I have once gone to a hospital whereby a healthcare practitioner actually, she didn't know what she was doing, but when she was questioned on not doing doing the right thing, she got mad, she got upset. I don't know, and at some point it goes back to the question of some of these doctors and nurses are also depressed. So they carry that depression on towards the patients, and it doesn't really give that good room. Even if such a mother, assuming it was me that gave birth in that hospital, I wouldn't go back because already I'm terrified, I'm scared. This is not good news. So we really need to train them. We need to tell them that these women are going through a lot, and even after giving birth, they have to go through the postpartum stress disorder for them to be able to catch up and cope with what's happening in the environment. But when we continue to subject them to pain and harm, it means that they're not going to be good. They're not going to be happy. So we need really to support, to train the healthcare practitioners and also to integrate them. Maybe we can put them in a role. The doctor has to know where his role ends, and the nurse also has to take over from there. Not you being taken care of by one person who is very immature and also angry at the same time. Another thing also I would consider is education and awareness. We have to have the public health campaigns. We have to have the cultural relevant materials that are able for us to be able to share with the communities. And also, as far as even the dignity kits, we can even share with them. As a mother, you need to learn when you've given birth, it's not everything you're supposed to touch. And it's not everyone that's supposed to come and shake your hand, and the same hand you will use to breastfeed your child. You have to be clean enough to know what you want to do in life. You also have to, we have to have public health campaigns in the communities where we come from. I don't know about the sub-national levels, but here at the national level, I've seen it happen, whereby people go to door for those pregnant women, looking for them to educate them on to create awareness campaigns on hygiene, and also on breastfeeding and availability of support services that are there in case they're running short of support. Another thing also is the policy and legislation of this country. Sorry, you know, like we have a lot of rules and regulations in this country. I bet South Sudan has is one of the countries that has the best rule set, but implementation becomes a challenge. How are we really implementing this rule? Implementing these rules? Because even we've seen most of these things they have been rectified. Even the last time Maputo Protocol was rectified, but who is following these rules to see that these programs that have been worked on, these legislations are being implemented in the country? It really becomes a stress factor. And then also we have to have this paid maternity leave when it comes to policy and legislation in the organization. I'm sorry to say this, but there are some organizations that are really disappointing when it comes to handling breastfeeding women. You know, as a woman in this country, our culture and tradition also affect us in such a way that you don't have a say when you're giving birth to children. A man can decide clearly that you're going to give birth after 1 year, and you cannot do anything about it. You can call the community elders and try to explain to them, but no way. Now, explain that to your boss. who knows that you have to go for maternity leave every 3 months. On top of that, you will have to have that, some organizations, they call it 6-month leave actually, because when you come back after 3 months, 3 months is off completely, but the next 3 months, you're going to have half a day to do your work, half a day to do your work, go back and breastfeed, you come back for the next 3 months. So he looks at you like a liability to the organization. So in such a way, they will even organize your termination letter without even your notice. Before you know it, you're not going to be extended for the next year because you're the kind of mother who is giving birth every 1 year. The organization has to look for another resourceful person to take over your role as you go for maternity leave. So we really need to have policy and legislation that are really friendly and also accommodative to women during the childbirth. The other thing I would also really want to emphasize is the workplace support. The workplace support in a way that we need to have flexibility when we come to work. It does not only imply the breastfeeding mothers; it also goes to the women who are lactating, those women who are also pregnant during the pregnancy phase, because breastfeeding does not actually start from the time you have given birth. For you to be healthy when breastfeeding, it starts from the time you conceive the child. Because if you go through that program of giving birth, by the time you give birth in stress, trust me, that stress is going to, you're going to carry it on to the child. The child is going to be sick. You're going to be always in the hospital. So it really needs also the environment, the workplace environment to be flexible. If your mother says, I'm not feeling well today, my child is sick, please allow them to go and take the child to the hospital than keeping them in the office. And then they're also worried of being stuck the next day. So it's really, we need that flexibility. And then we also need access to supplies and resources that we need to provide breastfeeding kits. Some of these mothers, by the way, if you look at Konyo now, or even custom or any other market for that matter, you realize that women come to work with little babies. Me, what surprises me is I wonder, you imagine, because you have to survive, the economy is really hitting hard on you. You have to carry your child to the marketplace. It's crowded, it's dirty, it's smelly, you're meeting all kinds of people. But then what puzzles me is where they put the child after breastfeeding the child, because they have no person to take care of the child. And also the child is very young, the child needs a mother, and the child needs to breastfeed every after, I don't know, could be 30 minutes or 1 hour, depending on the child that they have. But you wonder, they're going to put that child in the box. Some of them even put the child under the table. How secure is that? How safe is that? So we need also as organizations, as government bodies to come in and say, you know what, let's provide breastfeeding kits and also subsidies and vouchers for these mothers, so that even if they have given birth, at least let them spend 1 month at home. If the things are that bad, the economy is that bad, let them spend 1 month at home without thinking of going to work in such a condition. It's really, really a problem in our country. Then I look at the technology and telehealth aspect of it. Sorry, we need the online support groups. Like now, I thank God for EFF South Sudan, because it has really brought in so much when it comes to training young women, young men on how to go about in life and also create opportunities. Unless you're someone who is lazy, then that's when you will have excuses for not adapting to the situation at hand. But the same way that you're bringing in people to come and train them, it's the same way we should use this social media positively. The Facebook, the WhatsApp, the messengers. You can even check on your friends who have given birth. How are you doing? Because one thing that I don't like is people check on you when you're pregnant. After giving birth, now it's the baby. No one even wants to know how you're doing. How is the baby doing? How is the baby? What about the mother? When will you ask, how are you doing as an individual? What do you lack? Are you okay? Come and check on me. But most of the cases, the attention now has been shifted. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing. But now the attention gradually shifts from the mother to the baby. So you become actually invisible, like you're not even there. So you have to deal with your own things. Everyone goes and like, how is the child doing? How is the baby doing? But they're not asking you how you're doing. It's like the child has all of a sudden taken even your space. So we really need to look into this, and also positive things when it comes to breastfeeding, and also men, advise your fellow men to also give women gap when they're giving birth, because we're not animals to give birth every year. It is really, really, really something. Also research and data, we need also to research in this country. What are we going to do in terms of women? They're giving birth, okay. What can we do to change the scenario? What can we do, like these women I told you in the marketplace? what can we do as a country to change the narrative, to change the perception, to also help them? Because once we come here, they say there is when we deal with people in numbers, they said it makes a very big difference. It makes a very big difference. When we look at the data, now we realize that when you find 5 women, 3 are pregnant, and maybe the 2 are not. So what are we doing? Are we all sitting still for an international body to come and take the data for us to also update our status and see how South Sudanese women are suffering and what are they doing? So we really need to take it upon ourselves to really see around and also have that database of what's going on in our country. How are like right now, I are really pregnant. We've seen even men beat up their wives when they are really pregnant and they lose the pregnancy and it's not recorded anywhere. And people say everything is okay. Now we go back again. I would also want to talk about the collaboration and partnership. We need community organizations and public-private partnerships to come together and also see how we can help these women. Like if they are really they are really in need of support after all these findings and all that. We have to foster a collaboration between government, private sector, and civil society so that we can fund and implement breastfeeding support initiatives. I think it's one of the things that we should put for lack of a better word, we should put in place and think about it on how to overcome. And also the cultural sensitivity and inclusivity, the culture part of it, and I already talked about it. Men, you really need to also reconsider women because they say it's okay. Animals, the lactating time it differs, but for us human beings, we know it's 9 months, and if it is 9 months for a woman to go back to her full body, it takes almost 1 year plus. So if you're the kind of man who wants to give back to 10 kids because you don't want to marry 2 wives, it also becomes a challenge for this woman to step up. So I think that's, I don't know if I've answered your question, but those are the strategies I think that need to be put in place. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. You have answered the question in a detailed manner. Thank you so much, Adut, for being elaborate. And there's a comment here from Dennis. Dennis is saying breastfeeding mother needs support of men too, and exclusive breastfeeding is key because he says that most working mothers are not able to breastfeed exclusively due to work-related pressure. He has witnessed NGOs giving short-term contracts to women who are pregnant since they are viewed as a liability. Paying, for example, he's saying paying for someone who's not working for 3 good months. So he said there's a long way to go, but first there's need for amendment in the NGO Act and also more policy developments. And thank you so much for that contribution, Dennis. And if you just join us, we are having the webinar for the World Breastfeeding Week, focusing on breastfeeding as an equalizer to closing gaps within society. And our main speaker for today is Adut Christina. Adut Christina is the executive director for the South Sudan Women Empowerment Network, an organization registered since 2005 and has been working with women for this long period of time. And so far, she has discussed the importance of breastfeeding for infant health and maternal well-being. She also explored the challenges in South Sudan regarding breastfeeding, including economic issues and lack of supporting environments. She also talked about the need for community-based support and better training for healthcare providers to promote breastfeeding. She explored further the strategies to ensure equitable access to breastfeeding support and resources in different communities. Of course, we were supposed to have 2 webinars, 2 panelists, but we are having issues with the second panelist due to technical difficulties on their end. But Aduri is going to be our primary speaker, and also feel free to drop your contributions via the chat box. You can put in your comments, you can put in the questions that you have, and the discussion so far, like I said, has covered observation on breastfeeding practices in South Sudan and recommendations for improving support and access to resources for breastfeeding mothers. And yes, so just connecting to the issue of men, I was checking on the questions left by the people who registered, and one question was asking that how can men be engaged in supporting women during the breastfeeding months, or during the 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding? How can men be engaged in supporting women during this period of time? Adut, thank you.
Thank you for that question. How can men be engaged? First and foremost, to engage someone, it means you also have to make sure that they know what you're going to engage them in, because some men, I'm sorry to say this, don't mean to offend, but some men, they know the role of a woman is to give birth. Other than that, nothing else. And some men, they have had these tough women as mothers. Whenever they are to give birth, the mother doesn't question the dad on, I need this or I need that, and they don't see their mothers complaining, But that is in the African traditional society, yes. Right now, in this era, as a man, you also need to research. First and foremost, before even anything else, you need to go for antenatal care with your wife. That's the first thing. Because for you to learn about the breastfeeding, you must have also had that love for your wife to take her to a maternity center for antenatal care. Because once you do that, it also it shows the responsibility that you have. It also shows how responsible you are. So for me to come on board and talk about the impact of men and how men can be engaged, is this man willing to be engaged? We have an issue in South Sudan of polygamy. The man has 13 wives. Now you wonder, where do you start from? He will tell you his first wife is almost, I don't know how old, maybe it could be like late approximate, the guy is 60 years old. He will tell you his first wife is 50 years old, and then she did not have any issue. Now you, who comes in as number 13, your husband need to be trained and told, you know what, you need also, we need you to take care of this woman during the breastfeeding. Like, this is not my work. And also in our culture, we have these cultural barriers, actually, they're really affecting us. They say when a woman, she gives birth, the man disappears. I don't know where to. What I know is he goes into hiding, or he tries to stay away from the wife. So he can be off until the woman has finally given birth and the child is ready to be, for him to put in, I'm sorry for lack of a better word, for him to come back and maybe continue the cycle. So you also look at the nature of the person you're going to advise. For me, in this case, let me specifically talk about, because I don't want to talk about the white setting, because if it's the white setting, I'll be like, you know what, when a woman gives birth, that's monogamous marriages. Now, you need to call the man, you need to call the woman, sit them down together, and then talk to them about, from the maternity point of view, from the antenatal, you need to take care of your wife. You don't have to give her stress-related factors. You make sure that she's overworked. You also tell her she needs to exercise, she needs to move her legs, she needs to move around, But because from that time, when a woman is caring enough to do all those things together with the wife, check on her, what's her diet, what is she eating? It means automatically it sets in his mind that he's going to now take over the responsibility of manhood. He's going to be able even to see her through during the after pregnancy. That means he's going to be able to take care of her fully. Now that is a different case now for this kind of people, because they already know as they are mature enough and they take up responsibilities. But now also engaging who and run kind of a person. The girl has to go through all those issues with the family. Then we come back to our setting of homesteads, where they get to find out good in-laws in South Sudan who take good care of their sisters-in-law without the husband having to say anything. So either her in-laws or her direct family members. So if it is her direct family members, obviously they will follow the routine, they will take care of her. Then they take it normal, by the way, they say, it's okay, it's fine, there's no problem. Until you go back maybe to your husband's house. That is for the first time mothers. But men, you really need to play a big role, by the way. These women need you. These women, they are not robots, they are human beings. They also need that care. Even if you're far away and the tradition demands that you leave your wife for the time being until the baby is okay, you also need to put in mind that you need to call her, you need to provide for her the best nutrients that she needs. Don't leave her entirely in that state of dilemma. You also need to check on her as much as you check on your child. You also need to check on your wife. And you also need to know to also see how is her immune system, how is she balancing up. Take her for medication once in 1 month. If she's not feeling well, if the baby is not feeling well, you have to be there both for the mother and the child. Because most cases we see men taking responsibility for their child more than they do for the mother. So we really need you to step up. It doesn't matter how many wives you have, but the fact of the matter that you married all those women, it means that you're able and you can take care of them. So regardless, we don't want excuses. We just want you to be there, compliment them, help them through this whole process. And when you can decide later on, if you're to give birth to another child, then you can see from there, what did you learn? Also, you have to look back and see what were your failures, what did you contribute, and with what you contributed, how effective was it? How is the child that you helped through the mother through maternity, through all this phase to breastfeeding? How is that child faring, and how are they doing? I mean, it's a good thing. Kindly continue. So, thank you for the question.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you for being elaborate, dude. So she said that of course men have a very important role to play, and for them to do this, one, they should ensure that they do their homework. They should know that they have a role to play in providing breastfeeding support. I see there's a hand from Daro. Maybe before I continue, I can give you this chance. Over to you, Daro. Patrick.
Thank you very much, Bida. And the presenter, I would just like to add something on what he has said. You know, really,
yes, you're welcome.
Play a great role. Yeah, what should happen now is, you know, there are men who don't know that the children themselves even. So, advocacy, they should be trained. They should be told that up to the 6 months is very, very key. When a child is breastfed very well, from the 0 month to the 59, what I say, from zero to 6 months, the child become more healthier than any other child who has not been breastfed. There's always an excuse by some mothers, they're saying, oh, for them they don't have milk. That one is just psychological. When you put the child there to suckle, the milk will definitely come. So number one, we have to talk to the parents that it is their role to encourage their mothers, their wives, to breastfeed the children very well, because by breastfeeding the child very well, the chances that the child will fall sick are very, very minimal and reduced. That's what I can add.
Thank you so much, Daro, for the addition. Thank you so much, Daro, once again for that very important addition. So he emphasizes on the importance of breastfeeding for improving the health outcomes of kids, because you realize that a kid that has been breastfed for 6 months, like exclusive breastfeeding, plus a kid that has got, I don't know, you call it complementary or what, the one that supports the breastfeeding, there will be a lot of difference in terms of how often they fall sick, and generally even intelligence, especially when it comes to such children. And that is the addition from Daro Patrick. Thank you so much for that. I am not seeing any other extra comments from the participants, but earlier on also Adu did mention that of course for men to be able to support fully, they have to do their homework, they have to do their research, they have to know that they have a role to play, and then they also have to take responsibility. They also have to know that they're responsible to contribute to the well-being of the children, so that in the end, when they grow up, they become the people that they want to be. Because when you do things really, really well, you get to minimize extra expenses at later stages of the child's life, compared to when you neglect breastfeeding. I see another comment from Dennis. Dennis is saying, as men, we have to make sure women deliver in health facilities first. The baby is supposed to be attached to the breast milk within 0 to 59 minutes after birth, then exclusively breastfed. Health facility delivery is key. Yeah. So he's saying, yeah, make sure when your child is, when your mother or when your woman is expectant, she has to go deliver from a licensed healthcare facility, so that she's taken care of by professionals. Thank you all for the comments, Dennis and Daro. And we'll move on with the discussion. And just, dude, let's talk about the positive impact of breastfeeding, especially on education and development of infants. What do you have to say about the positive impact of education, of breastfeeding on education and development of infants in the long run?
Okay. Thank you so much for the question. Before I answer that question, the gentleman talked about the women not giving excuses. Oh, the baby cannot suck the there's no milk, there's no this. I actually was also intrigued because I also asked the same question. Actually, the stress levels in this country, they are too high. It's not only in this country. I've even seen the same scenario in Uganda, in some countries. You realize that a stressed mother, in most cases, does not have, barely even has milk, because it's the brain that the brain setting and how things are done. So there are some children, by the time they clock 6 months, introduce them to food, you're done. That's when even they would for them to breastfeed, you have to force them. You have to force them by all means. There are some kids, from the time they give birth to them, I don't know whether it is a cultural thing or what, but from the time you're given birth, they don't even want to suck or anything like that. And those are on rare cases though. But I cannot. I do agree with you that those cases are there, but they're not too many. Just some special cases, but there are different reasons as to why they have this. There is also a cultural aspect of it, actually, genetically. Some people don't even have breast milk. You realize the whole gene was like that. So I don't know how they deal with it, but that's basically their own thing. And it's a special case as well, as I said. We can't disregard that as well, though I didn't talk about it. Now, coming back to the question on how breastfeeding can positively impact the education and development of infants. First and foremost, we all know that breastfeeding has a profound impact on the education and development of infants due to its unique nutritional, immunological, and also psychological benefits to the mother and the child as well. One of the things I will also will want to really iron out is the growth development. The brain growth, also the higher IQ scores. When you breastfeed a child, like our brother said earlier, that a child that has breastfed for up to 6 months performs better, thinks better, and even is healthier compared to a child who hasn't breastfed at all, or whose breastfeeding cycle has been cut short. And it's really important that we put into these factors, because when a child breastfeeds, that 6 month duration, it means that the child is going to be exposed to so many things at that with just breastfeeding. That is one. The second thing is the nutritional advantage of it. First and foremost, the child that has all that is breastfeeding fully there's that perfect balance of nutrients. The child is able to absorb protein, fats, vitamins, minerals, name it, all kinds of health benefits, and as well as the bioavailability. Like nutrients in breast milk actually have so much to offer in comparison to that in the formula. So it means that when you feed your child, breastfeed your child for all that time, the nutritional advantage of it also affects their well-being and even their growth. We've seen circumstances whereby a child has stunted growth. You see, the father is told, the mother is told, they are all giants, and then the child is not growing. Year in, year out, and as a visitor, you are even, I don't know, you even feel embarrassed to ask the kid, what happened to this child? The child, what happened? Is this a new child or the one I born that time? The child is not even going anywhere. So it really becomes an issue. So people should take into consideration that we have also the immune system support. For a child who has been breastfed for a longer time, there are chances of fewer infection. The child is likely to fall sick. It has a long-term health benefit. So the kid cannot really fall sick or who has had that part of him or her to breastfeed for all that time. And then also we have the psychological and emotional of it. Actually, it reduces the stress. Those are the ones I was talking about. I'm not a medical practitioner, but when a child breastfeeds, the stress levels actually also reduce, I was told, and also it can respond. And also the fact that it's also the skills for a child who has breastfed from 0 to 6 months, at 11 months before because the child's health is in check. There's also emotional regulation. The child can really tell. And by the way, even with that breastfeeding comes in this thing of like some people's children faster than others. They are likely to have teeth more before others. They're also likely to walk, to sit maybe by themselves at a very young, tender months of age. And also, there's also a lot to do with the impact of breastfeeding as well as long-term education outcomes. Even in school performances, you realize this child is out competing his or her fellow pupils in the school, and also the behavior. You know, there's some kids who become so stubborn and also distorted when it comes. When they have not been, they don't want to listen. Those are the kids, you punish them today, tomorrow they're doing the same thing, you punish them. But a child who has been breastfeeding was to so much also, lack of a better word, the child has more advantage when it comes to co-curricular activities. The child can learn very fast. And then so also parental engagement. When a child is also, it also brings that closeness between the mother and the child. And then also the bond is strengthened because the child will obviously tell this is their mom, even if they cannot see, because once the mother holds that child, the child feels that is their mom. So I think those are the things I can really put across. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, great. Of course, overall contribution to how intelligent the child becomes, and also how active the child participates in activities such as extracurricular activities, even helping running around in the house, and then issues of retarded growth, especially if the child is not breastfed well, and also regular sicknesses. You find you will have to visit the healthcare facilities very often, especially when you neglect the issues of exclusive breastfeeding. And a question just came in from Andrew Akol. Andrew Akol is saying that, talking about exclusive breastfeeding, I understand that that's the foundation for every healthy child. But there are women who drink alcohol even during breastfeeding period. Others rarely clean their breasts before breastfeeding their infants. Considering that, with excessive breastfeeding, what are the consequences of these negative practices to the child inclusively? Yes, so that is the contribution and also question from Andrew Akol. Again, he says that, talking about exclusive breastfeeding, I understand that that's the foundation for every healthy child. But there are women who drink alcohol even during breastfeeding period. Others rarely clean their breasts before breastfeeding their infants. Considering that, with excessive breastfeeding, what are the consequences of these negative practices to the child inclusively? So as you think about answering that question, I would just like to remind our audience that this webinar is part of the World Breastfeeding Week, and it is discussing breastfeeding as an equalizer to close gaps within the South Sudan society as part of the World Breastfeeding Week. And it's brought to you by South Sudan Women Empowerment Network and the Excellence Foundation for South Sudan. And our main speaker for the day is Adut Christina, who is the Executive Director at the South Sudan Women Empowerment Network, an organization registered in 2005 and works with women and supporting them as they navigate life's daily challenges. And so far, the key points covered during the discussion include the challenges of breastfeeding in South Sudan, including issues related to economy and the lack of supportive environments. We also covered the strategies to ensure equitable access to breastfeeding support and resources in different communities. The topic also covered the importance of men's involvement in supporting breastfeeding mothers, as well as the positive impacts of breastfeeding on infant health, education, and development. The discussion has earlier also covered observations on breastfeeding practices, the recommendations for improving support, and the role of men in supporting breastfeeding mothers. Like I mentioned earlier, Adut Christina is our main speaker, and she has provided detailed responses on this topic, emphasizing the need for community support, workplace flexibility, and policy changes to better support breastfeeding mothers. Feel free to drop your contributions via the chat box, and also later we'll give you the opportunity to be able to raise your hand and ask any questions that you may have. So would you like to answer the question from Andrew Akol?
Yes, it's okay. I will answer. Andrew, thank you for the question that you have faced. And your question was asking about women who have hygiene issues. I believe they rarely clean their breasts and also the fact that some women drink alcohol excessively, and we wanted to know the consequences of the negative of this negative. Now, this now brings the first thing we talk about, the support groups, the community-based support groups. You know, because if these women from the beginning, we have this network, we actually will not even be discussing a big issue in this country, but in Africa in general. And I'm not really sure, but the reality of the matter is some of these mothers earlier on already in one, also some of these by the women conceived is aware and relatives are and tobacco, yes, those, and there are those who go while pregnant, they go and drink.
Looks like we lost a dude there, but I trust that she will bounce back. Unfortunately, yeah, we hope that she will bounce back. Otherwise, thank you so much, Adut, for the contribution. And she was answering the question of concerns of hygiene, as well as practices such as drinking alcohol by some women when they are breastfeeding. And Andrew Akol was asking the consequence of these negative practices to the child's health inclusively. And another comment just came in from Daro Patrick. Daro Patrick is saying that men should know that once they make a woman pregnant, they become responsible for both the woman and the child's welfare. Regardless of the number of women he has, there's no excuse in the name of culture. Thank you so much, Daro, for that important contribution. I see new people just joined us. You are welcome. James Marop Chawuch and also Emmanuel Karaba. We are discussing the topic of breastfeeding, and the webinar focuses on breastfeeding as an equalizer to close gaps within the South Sudan society as part of the World Breastfeeding Week. And our main speaker is Adut Christina, Executive Director at the South Sudan Women's Empowerment Network. The key topics covered so far include the challenges for breastfeeding mothers in South Sudan, including economic issues and the lack of supportive environments, strategies to ensure equitable access to breastfeeding support and resources in different South Sudanese communities, the importance of men's engagement in supporting breastfeeding mothers, and the positive impacts of breastfeeding on infant health, development, and education. The discussion has also covered observations on breastfeeding practices and recommendations for improving support and the role of men in supporting breastfeeding. Adut has been elaborating on these topics, providing detailed insights from her experience and knowledge of the South Sudanese context. We have also had comments from Daro Patrick and also from Dennis Tokwaro. Earlier on, Dennis said that breastfeeding mothers need our support as men too, because exclusive breastfeeding is key. He said that most working mothers are not able to breastfeed exclusively due to work-related pressure. He says that he has witnessed NGOs giving short-term contracts to women who are pregnant since they are viewed as a liability, as in paying for someone who is not working for 3 good months, as the policy states. So he says we have a long way to go. First, the NGO Act needs some amendment and then more policy development. And he also said that as men, we have to make sure women deliver in health facilities first, and the baby is supposed to be attached to the breast milk within 0 to 59 minutes after birth. So within the first hour of birth, ensure that the baby is attached to breast milk, then exclusively breastfed for 6 months. health facility delivery is key. That is a comment from Dennis. And earlier on also, Andrew Cole made a comment as well as question. He says that when we talk about exclusive breastfeeding, he understands that's the foundation for every healthy child, but there are also women who drink alcohol even during breastfeeding period, and others rarely clean their breasts before breastfeeding their infants. Considering that exclusive breastfeeding, he was then asking what are the consequences of such negative practices. And lastly, another comment that came in from Daro was that men should know that once they make a woman pregnant, they become responsible for both the woman and the child's welfare, regardless of the number of women he has. There's no excuse in the name of culture. Thank you all for the contribution, and it's a pleasure hosting you in this webinar. Let's continue with the discussion, and feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat box, or any contribution, any comments that you would like to make and be part of this discussion already. Adut, we lost you a bit. I don't know if you're back.
I can hear you people. I don't know. Could be network issues.
Okay, then good. You're welcome back, and thank you once again for joining us. I don't know if you can remember where you were cut short by the network. Can you remember?
Yeah, I was trying to answer our brother Andrew on what he said about the consequences of drinking while breastfeeding, and also hygiene. The fact that some women they don't clean their breasts, they really clean their breasts. I think that's the word he used when it comes to breastfeeding. And I was telling him that's where the support groups come in, the networks, because I believe these people already know the challenges they have with these women. And if this is your wife, that means that you must have, for example, if someone had a wife of this nature that drinks a lot, it means that you as a man, you have to step up your responsibility. And that's where men come in to play their role, because if you've tried to engage your community and the networks around her, that means her family, her relatives, almost everyone. A happy mother is a happy child, and likewise, when it comes to health, a healthy mother is a healthy child. So is going to be exposed to this kind of, and as in for the first one of the hygiene, that one is right talk to the health workers, and also with our culture, we have those aunties who are close to the woman who can, because for us women, when a man is done telling us the reality on the ground, we take it, become offensive, we become defensive. But if it is someone close to the lady, a relative, or maybe someone close to them and talks to them in a good manner, because men can approach their aunties and their maybe elder sisters and mothers and try to find a way of how to engage her. So it becomes like a creation, awareness creation on how she is supposed to treat this child and how she's supposed to take care of herself, especially for the first-time mothers. They don't know what to do when they're pregnant. So when you bring in this as a whole hygiene issue, then you men also, you should not tell the lady, I want this to be done without contributing a part, because maybe she needs the kits. Maybe she needs sanitizers. Maybe she needs to have enough water, because apparently I know the situation is hard. The 1 barrel of water was 3,000, and it's 500, 3,500 per plate. Some places 4,000. So you have to make sure there's water in the house. There is soap in the house. The baby's clothes are always clean. The mother's clothes are always clean. Do your role as a man. Then there you can have the permission to ask, why are you breastfeeding my child when you're dirty in a place that is not healthy, it's not clean? There you can have a right to voice out your opinion, because there you would have, it would have 50-50 balance. But whereby you're not even helping, and then that's where the defensive and offensiveness comes in. But for the drinking type, I'm sorry to tell you, but you know, hygiene obviously it has consequences. The child falls sick, the kid goes to diarrhea, because definitely it becomes costly, because you have to go in and out of the hospital all the time. And before the drinking part of it, this goes through the system of the child. It has a long-term impact on the child. Meaning, for the child by the time you get to realize that you've been talking to this lady from the whole pregnancy, and for her to give birth and she's still drinking, you also know that your baby is actually, I'm sorry to say for lack of a better word, but your kid is also a drunkard. because what comes out of the child, the mother, is what the child is also taking. So at the end of the day, it is you as a man to bring in the support groups, the networks, the family members, try to talk to them. And if all fails, then because I've seen in some cases, some people even talk to them and nothing changes. That's when you will reconsider whether you will continue to give birth in that set. Because at the end of the day, they say a woman is the home. The man is the owner of the house, is the head of the household, but the woman is the home itself. So if you're going to give birth to the good number of children to a woman in that state, then it will have to be you as a man to decide whether to take her to church for deliverance service, or to bring her to the cultural grounds, and then they see what is really happening. The family tries to talk it over, or if you're man enough to continue giving birth. But again, it's not about you and her this time. It becomes about the innocent child, the innocent children you're going to give birth to, because the kids are going to be distorted. And then also that's when this aspect of distorted whatever standard growth, and also the child has issues here and there, and on top of that, the long-term effects. I don't know about the shisha but the tobacco and the cigarettes and the alcohol, they have a long-term effect on the child, because even we've had people who are still talking about the fact that their mother used to drink and that's why they're drinking. And it's really emotionally breaking, because as a man, if you're not drinking and your woman is drinking, then it's a whole lot of topic anyway for another day. But one thing I'm sure of is that this is the only way you can save such a person, and the only visible means is using the network, is using the community-based approach.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Adut. I would like to give you some 10 minutes to go grab a glass of water, and then and then you come back and we continue with the conversation. So I'm giving you a 10 minutes break. Go do some stretching, grab water, and then we come back and continue with the conversation. Otherwise, it's been very nice, and thank you so much for being very elaborate and also sharing very important insights that will contribute us, especially to the discussions that are happening around the World Breastfeeding Week this year. So just like to share my screen and then show to the audience the key information from the World Health Organization website. Yeah, so just about the World Breastfeeding Week. World Breastfeeding Week is held in the first week of August every year, supported by the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and many ministries of health and civil society partners. The theme for 2024 is Closing the Gap, Celebrating Breastfeeding Support for All. The campaign will celebrate breastfeeding moms in all their diversity throughout their breastfeeding journeys, while showcasing the ways families, societies, communities, and health workers can have the back of every breastfeeding mom. And every year, of course, there are some key messages. And for this year, these are the key messages from the World Health Organization website. And one of the key message is that this World Breastfeeding Week, it's important to appreciate breastfeeding mothers and ensure that they get the support that they need. Just based on the conversations we have had so far, this support including ensuring that we accept responsibility, and also ensuring that in the work environment, in our offices, we have policies that favor proper breastfeeding, so that women have spaces where they can do their breastfeeding thing and things of that sort. And also, another key message is that breastfeeding support comes in many forms, from staff welcoming breastfeeding in local cafes to helpful advice from a healthcare worker or maternity protections from the government. These all help protect the health and rights of women and babies. Another key message is that women everywhere have the right to respectful breastfeeding counseling from trained healthcare providers, as well as laws and policies like maternity leave and provisions that like paid time off when you go back to work, just like the comment Dennis made earlier, as well as the comment that was made by Daro Patrick. Another important message is that we can all help ensure women feel able to breastfeed anytime, anywhere, and work to improve the position and condition of women at home, at work, and in public life. So what is needed to support women or breastfeeding moms? Here are some suggestions from the World Health Organization. World Health Organization is also saying that support for women to breastfeed anytime, anywhere, so that it is normalized and not censored in public life. Yeah, so there shouldn't be censorship for breastfeeding moms. They should be allowed to breastfeed anytime, anywhere. Another support is that effective maternity entitlements that do not force women to choose between their families and their work. Yeah, so it's saying that don't put women in a very narrow gap where they have to choose between the thin line of either choosing their families or choosing their work. So there should be effective maternity entitlements. Another key comment is that train health care professionals who provide helpful, respectful breastfeeding support. And another comment is an end to exploitative baby milk promotions in all contexts. Yeah, so these are some key comments or some key information from the World Health Organization about the key messages for this year's World Breastfeeding Week. And I'm going to share this link in the chat box so that you can also read the messages yourself. And then when we come back from the break, we will continue with the conversations. In the meantime, do not forget to leave your comments or any questions you have in the chat box. Yeah, so yeah, once again, this is all information about the campaign for this year. The theme for 2024 is closing the gap, breastfeeding support for all. This year, the World Health Organization wants to really recognize breastfeeding mothers, ensure they are seen and heard, and share relatable human experiences about breastfeeding and the importance of multi-level support. This support they are talking about includes policies and attitudes that value women and breastfeeding, a woman and breastfeeding friendly healthcare system, respect for women's autonomy and her right to breastfeed anytime, anywhere, and as well as solidarity and community support. And if you notice, if you've been following the discussions closely, you realize that the panelists, as well as the different distinguished guests that made comments, have been touching on all these areas that are focused on in this information. And it continues to say that these are actions that all of us can take. You can take this action, I can take this action, and we can collectively take this action so that we can all take that help women to breastfeed as long as they would like. And the campaign is from the 1st to the 7th of August, and the theme, of course, is breastfeeding support for all. The hashtags is breastfeeding week as well as together for moms. So these are the hashtags. If you want to continue with this conversation online, feel free to use these hashtags and feel free to use this information and push for proper breast feeding. We're left with a few minutes to wrap up this conversation, and if you've been following from the beginning, you will notice that this has been very insightful conversation. Unfortunately, we were not able to connect with one of our panelists. I see is here. Kemis, can you hear us? Kemis, are you able to speak? Oh, I see another hand from Daro. Daro, you're welcome to make your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Beda. Thank you very much. And Adut. For members no, the day was launched already in a Pyramid Hotel in their respective or different places. Other celebration in Gure coming to attend.
Pardon, your network was breaking. I barely heard something. Could you kindly repeat?
Oh, okay, I was saying, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yes, I was saying for those members who may not know, the day was launched officially on the 1st of August 2024 in the Pyramid Hotel. And then different agencies are already observing the day in the week in their respective places. Then for Central Equatorial State, there will be a celebration or commemoration of the day in Igure PHCC. So members who are around or within the area can join on Tuesday, the 6th.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the information. Yes, we will definitely endeavor to join the commemoration on Tuesday 6th at Gurei Health PHCC. What time, please, Daro? What time?
It's from 8.
What time, Patrick?
From 8.
8.
From
Okay.
from 8. From 8 downwards.
Thank you so much.
Upward. From 8
Okay,
upward. Yeah.
great. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that announcement. It's duly noted.
You're welcome.
Yes, and yes, and that is it from the World Health Organization about the commemoration. And of course, in South Sudan, it's led by UNICEF. There are also some key messages that has been shared by the Ministry of Health in collaboration with UNICEF, especially for us from South Sudan. These are some key messages from the Ministry of Health as well as UNICEF in regards to this day. So the key messages include some of the following. Yes. So one key message is that begin breastfeeding immediately or within the first hour of birth, just like earlier elaborated by Denise, and breastfeed on demand. Give the infant only breast milk frequently, day and night, for the first 6 months. Another key message is that breast milk contains all the required food that includes nutrients and water for the baby to grow and develop. Breast milk also contains antibodies that protect infants from childhood illness. And another key message is do not give anything else apart from breast milk before 6 months, not even water, unless it is medicine, which is recommended by the healthcare provider. And another key message is at 6 months, breastfeeding should be combined with safe and appropriate complementary foods up to 2 years of age or beyond. And some of the messages for addressing breastfeeding gaps include advocate for more maternity leave days for working breastfeeding mothers. I think this is another key message that has been overemphasized earlier by Adud as well as the other people that made comments. And another one is enact the code of marketing breast milk substitute. I think this also aligns with what the World Health Organization earlier said in their message. Another one is providing counseling support to mothers for early initiation within first hour of birth. Another one is awareness among healthcare workers, family, and community on the importance of breastfeeding. Yeah, just like Adud earlier said, she mentioned an example of a healthcare worker that she doubts has knowledge. So here also the Ministry of Health in South Sudan is emphasizing on the importance of awareness among healthcare workers, families, and communities on the importance of breastfeeding. Another key message is support for infants and disability and congenital defects. And another one is integrating early childhood development. And lastly, breastfeeding in emergencies. So these are the key messages from the Ministry of Health, Republic of South Sudan, on the World Breastfeeding Week. So we're left with about 9 minutes to end this conversation. And Adut, I hope you've held a good break. Are we good to go now? Hey, Christine, are you back from the break? Okay.
Yes, I
Probably.
did have a good break.
Okay, good. So we're left with about 8 minutes to close the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, feel free to drop the questions in the chat box. And I see Winnie Juru Diana has put some questions here, and she's saying that the whole conversation is really good And another benefit of exclusive breastfeeding is that it acts as a natural method of family planning. When we are to talk about hygiene, drugs, alcohol, nicotine, it's really challenging. Some mothers tend not to take care of their newborns when it comes to breastfeeding. That affects the child mentally and physically. So her questions are, when should I start breastfeeding newborn after a cesarean section, after a C-section? Yeah. So maybe for a mother that gives birth, I when should she, is it possible to start within the first hour as recommended by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization, or she's asking when should that start after a C-section? And the second question from Winnie is, how can we encourage first-time mothers and working-class mothers to continue breastfeeding their newborns exclusively for 6 months? Because I see, I can even attest that most of the challenges actually when it comes to breastfeeding is especially from new mothers, these young girls, and then also mothers that are working class, as earlier confirmed by the different people that made comments. So she's asking, how can these people, this group of people, be encouraged um, to breastfeed their newborns exclusively for 6 months? Thank you.
Okay. What's the name of the person that asked the question? Sorry.
The
Can you
name
hear me?
is Winnie Juru Diana. Winnie Juru Diana. Yes, Winnie
Okay.
Juru Diana. Winnie
Okay.
Diana. Thank you. Yeah.
Winnie, thank you for the question. It's not a one thing. It's not one person. It's not. It's a collective effort of everyone, each and everyone, especially for the new time mothers, for the working mothers. It requires a collaborative effort, and also it requires all of us to come through and also support these mothers, because, and it's really true when you ask that question of how possible is it to breastfeed the child. It really brings in a lot, because if you read through the benefits and also what it does to the child, you wouldn't want to not to breastfeed your child, except if there are other issues to be done. Because to me, I don't think it's only about breastfeeding. Breastfeeding starts from the time you conceive, the time of conception. So when you conceive and then you go through that process, well, every day counts and every month counts until the time of delivery. If you have to make sure that you're checking your diet, you have to also to make sure that you're in good sense, you have the peace of mind that you really need, though it's not easy in this country. You also make sure that you have the support of your spouse as well as your family members, and then the community. And that's where the community-based approach comes in. Also the network around you, and also when it comes to the working mothers, this is why we need awareness creation to the workplaces. We need to share information about the health benefits of breastfeeding mothers, because this is one aspect that people don't really put into consideration. We need to host workshops. We need to distribute educational materials so that people are also made aware that it has a great impact on the child and also on the mother. And we also have to make sure that the policies that are implemented in this country in regard to this matters concerning these women, these mothers, are put in place, and they are also implemented, not only just endorsed, but also implemented. So it's a collective effort. It's not a one thing. Everyone has to be involved, and we only do that through education and raise awareness in the community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Adut. Yes, Diana, I hope that answers your question. I see a hand from Dennis. Dennis Tokwaro, would you like to say something?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Christina Adut, for the nice presentation. I've seen a question, maybe from our sister, about when should I start breastfeeding my baby after C-section? Uh, I know late before our presenter mentioned the issue of within 1 hour, and I've also commented. But what matters with the C-section is we are not strictly following the 1 minute, because after the person has come from theater, has been given some anesthetic drugs, which is not yet stable. So for the case of the C-section, it is not strictly within 1 minute. It is still when the mother is stable, that is when they can start breastfeeding. Thank you.
Okay, great. So for a C section, Diana, Dennis is saying that you don't have to follow strictly what he mentioned earlier of between 0 to 59 minutes. He's saying that it will wait until stability, until the mom is stable, and then the breastfeeding then can commence. I hope that answers your question. Um, Diana, we're left with 3 minutes, and I would like to give it to Adut Christina to wrap up since there are no more questions. Otherwise, I would like to sincerely thank each and every one of you. This has been a very in-depth, and this is one of the sessions I would say I've attended, very good session I've attended in a long time. And yeah, this knowledge will help me and will go a long way, especially in the work that I do, as well as supporting the networks that I work with. So, Adut, 2 minutes for your final comments. Thank you so much.
Okay, I would really like to put appreciation there. I know it's a Sunday, it's a resting day, it's a work day to some people who are doing small jobs here and there. But it's really very important that I acknowledge the tireless effort that you put in to be here for the last 1 hour and 30 minutes. It means a lot. It has really been great having you all here. There is power in numbers, and when it comes to things that are sensitive as World Breastfeeding Day or World Breastfeeding Week, it really becomes very, very, very sensitive in a way that we have to look at the practical part of it. So it is not a one man standalone kind of thing. It needs us to, again, as I said, it's a collective effort. If the 10 of us or the 13 of us gathered here today try to make an awareness creation or host a workshop on breastfeeding awareness in Juba, it can really make an impact. Like our brother said, organizations are having different workshops about the breastfeeding week. But I would also want to emphasize that Juba is not the only town. We have the grassroots people, the subnational level. They don't even know what's happening in Juba. And we really need to reach out there. So it's always good to be of help. If you can be of help to someone, be of help at that time, let them know, because you're educated to educate others. So we really need to as well as change our country. Like John F. Kennedy once said that this is not the time to ask what our country can do for us, but what we can do for our country. Right? We expect the government to do everything, but things to do like these small things like World Breastfeeding Week and also celebrating mothers during this financial crisis, it doesn't even require the government to come on board. It requires our collective effort. It requires one step at a time. It requires you and I to come together and then also try to support these women. And also at the workplaces, we have to reach out to the workplaces. How are they supporting these women? And also try to see the policies that are being implemented by the government. What does the policy say? And are they being implemented? Are they being influenced? Are they having the legislation in place? Are they being respected? We have also to engage the healthcare practitioners in different communities, because it's a whole world of work, but we cannot do it as a separate entity, as individuals. It needs us to go out there as a network. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate the time that you guys in this web. I think I've exhausted my 2 minutes.
Yeah, you're a good time manager. Thank you so much. A sincere appreciation. We can all give Adut Christina a very virtual hand clap. As well, we'd like to appreciate each and every one of you for being part of this conversation, and also to colleagues like Dennis Tokwaro, Daro Patrick, and then we had Andrew Akol, as well as Winnie Juru Diana, for your contributions and questions. And yes, just a summary, this webinar was brought to you by the South Sudan Women Empowerment Network in partnership with the Excellence Foundation. And during this session, we focused the webinar on breastfeeding as an equalizer to close gaps within the society. And our main speaker from the start of this webinar has been Adut Christina, who is the Executive Director of the South Sudan Women Empowerment Network. And some key points that were covered during the session include the challenges of breastfeeding in South Sudan, including economic issues and lack of supportive environments. We also discussed the strategies to ensure equitable access to breastfeeding support and resources, the importance of men's involvement in supporting breastfeeding mothers, the positive impacts of breastfeeding on infant health, education, and development, the observations on breastfeeding practices, and recommendations for improving support. We also shared key messages from the World Health Organization and the South Sudan Ministry of Health regarding breastfeeding support and practices, and the discussion emphasized on the need for community support. Earlier on, we've mentioned that it's a responsibility of all of us, and we should be able to decentralize this support, not only focusing on Juba, but also focusing on other parts of the country, and also emphasis on workplace flexibility. There should be need for proper policy changes to better support breastfeeding mothers. So thank you so much once again for being part of the conversation. It's been nice hosting all of you. And from all of us here, we wish you the very best of your afternoon, a very happy new week in advance as you start Monday tomorrow.